feel like it's been a while. You know what the big trees in California are called?
Giant sequoias.
Giant sequoias, or redwoods, or sequoias. They're big, big trees. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're just thinking about trees around here, they're trees that if they fell over, that you could hollow out the middle and drive a car through. That's how big these trees are. So as you can imagine, they were growing for a long time to get that big. Listen to this story about these trees. I know, a story about trees, that sounds great. One fine summer day in 1606, a grove of towering sequoias in a place that would come to be known as California, a tiny seedling poked up through the virgin soil, drawing energy from the filtered sunlight of the towering sentinels. The infant lifted its miniature arms to the light and warmth that had awakened it. A year later, as the seedling turned sapling, the London Company established the Jamestown settlement in Virginia. A year after that, as the sapling became a young sequoia, an adventurer named Samuel de Champlain founded Quebec City in New France, a territory that would one day be called Canada. After 3 more years, when the sequoia's top was 11 feet above the forest floor, a group of scholars released an elegant English translation of the Bible that would be known as the King James Version. In 1618, when the tree was nearly 2 stories high, Europe became embroiled in a conflict that history books would one day call the 30 Years' War. As the tree continued to grow, America became a nation, fought a civil war, joined Europe in fighting 2 world wars, put men on the moon, and suffered at the hands of terrorists on September 11, 2001. Through all of those events spanning centuries, the seedling became a towering titan of the forest, soaring over 240 feet into the California sunshine. And then, just a couple of years ago, the tree fell to the earth in a thunderous crash. It was the first of Yosemite's magnificent sequoias to fall in many years, and the Forest Service authorized an investigation. What mysterious force had slain the giant? What would cause such a majestic tree to fall in this way? There had been no windstorms, no fires, no floods, no lightning strikes. The toppled tree showed no evidence of animal or insect damage, and as park rangers and forestry experts examined the downed behemoth, they came to a startling conclusion: foot traffic. In an interview with CNN, Ranger Deb Schweitzer explained that foot traffic around the base of the tree over the years had damaged the root system and contributed to the collapse. She added that the park officials had now instituted a policy of fencing some of the oldest, largest, and most historically significant trees to keep the public from trampling the root system of these giants. Even the giant sequoia trees that have lived hundreds of years can't survive if there's no protection around their root system. That's what we're like. Whatever our root system is, if we don't have some protection around it, we too will fall. Now, I'm not 240 feet tall, but I have a root system. What is our root system? In Proverbs 4:23, King Solomon, who God says was the wisest person that ever lived, says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. So if our heart and our connection to God is our root system, how do we guard it? How do we protect it? And where do we learn how to do this? They're good questions. Now, there could be many answers to this question, but there are 2 ways to learn. When you break it down this way, there are 2 ways to learn. If I say wisdom, or what's the other one you can learn from? Consequences. Don't we learn when we face consequences? Wisdom or consequences? I'm going to tell you, and you can disagree with me, it doesn't matter. If you choose neither, the second will be chosen for you. You say, I'm not going to pick between them, then consequences is the only way that you're going to learn if you don't choose wisdom. What happens if I decide to run full speed into that brick wall? As fast as I can. I know it's not as fast anymore, but if I run as fast as I can into that brick wall, what's going to happen? Something bad, probably. I could break my nose, I could do whatever. And you could say, after that, you could say, well, what did you learn, John? I learned that you shouldn't run full speed into an object that's not going to move, right? Sounds dumb. You think I could learn that lesson just by seeing the brick. Unfortunately, sometimes we're not that smart. Consequence is one way to learn. See, but there are not enough bones in my body to learn every lesson that I need to learn in that way. I need to learn a lot of things in my life, and if I only choose consequences, I'm going to run out of bones, I'm going to run out of section in my heart, whatever it is, I'm going to fall apart if I only choose consequences. Wisdom is a much better way to learn, of course. See, consequences have a back-end cost. Wisdom has a front-end cost. Discipline, obedience, patience, and time to learn wisdom. Wisdom puts the fence at the top of the cliff and teaches you to not fall down the cliff. Consequences visit you in the hospital after you have fallen and hit the bottom. And you learned your lesson. Maybe too late. Here's the weird thing. Knowledge is not wisdom. We can find knowledge anywhere these days. You get on your phone, you get on the internet, you can watch TV, you can do anything you want. You can get lots and lots of knowledge. So that should mean that everybody's running around making smart decisions, right? No, because wisdom is not knowledge. Knowledge is not wisdom. Knowledge is information or awareness, while wisdom is the ability to use that knowledge to make good decisions. See, we get wisdom from spending time with people who share it and who teach us to use it. It's the best way to get wisdom. Later this month, I'm going to be offering all of us opportunities, ways to spend time with people, to share life and to share wisdom. You can call them groups, you can call them Bible studies, you can call them discipleship, you can call them whatever you want. You can call them getting together to eat wings. That's what I would really love to call it. But there are going to be opportunities to get together and share wisdom and to help each other not fall down the cliff. It works and it's necessary to guard our hearts, to guard our root system. But we can't do that every day, can we? We can't have a group that meets every day of the week. Places have tried this. I'm going to tell you something. If you hang out with me every day of the week, you're not going to like me very much. That's a little bit too much. And whether I would like to admit it or not, I probably feel that way about most of you. Several times a week, maybe, whatever, but if you see somebody 24 hours a day, things change, don't they? So, I would be ready to be alone after that. You would say people that need their alone time. I've had enough people for today. I've had enough people for this week. You can't, so the best way to get wisdom is from other people, but you can't do it every day. I'll tell you a story about someone I know, about their experience. I'm going to read you a story. Sorry, I didn't. This experience, listen to this. Now, I'm not a poet. I don't write stories. I write practical things. This is some literature. Smoke billowed on the horizon. Smoke where there should be no smoke. At least not a towering column like this one. It couldn't be good. Terrorists. What else could it be? As we approached, we could see a few flames licking at the piles of rubble. Yet where there had been homes, streets, playgrounds, gardens, there was nothing at all. Smoke, ruin, ashes, nothing more. Shocked into immobility, we could do nothing but gape. Where were the homes? Where were the houses? Where were the women and the children? We poured over the edge of the embankment. Some sliding, some jumping, some running headlong, falling, getting up, and falling again. Each man ran to the area where his home had been, hoping against hope to see someone moving in the wreckage, a beloved face, a form staggering out of the devastation, but there was no one, and no sound but the dry crackle of flames fanned by a lonely desert wind. Where were the bodies? We saw none. The terrorists must have kidnapped every woman and every child in the village. We wept without shame. Some cursed, some called out names in their anguish. Muttering amongst themselves, clusters began to gather, glancing at one another, nodding, fingering their weapons. It was like the moment before a violent thunderstorm, where the air becomes taut and stifling. That's when he collapsed on his knees and convulsed in agony. It's not as though his loved ones had been spared either. We couldn't help but watch, and as he poured out his sorrow, pleading for help and hope and direction, his body language began to change. Tension seemed to drain away from his shoulders. His hands unclenched, and he lifted his head as he prayed. Finally, rising again to his feet, he wiped away his tears, squared his shoulders, and spoke with a steady voice. Say what you will, something happened by that rock on the edge of total devastation. In those few moments, he had found strength, confidence, and fresh resolve. God must have given him a plan, too, because it wasn't long before we set off like the wind on the trail after the invaders. In that moment, we could believe again, and rising among us was confidence that we would recover from the ashes of Ziklag all that we had lost, and maybe even more. This is one of the stories about David and his men in the Bible, told in a way that's more poetic than maybe you think. But I assure you, back when it was written in the most poetic way they knew, in ways that people would understand. That can happen now, right? That can happen now. David has been gone from this earth for more than 3,000 years. Yet, I can still meet with him weekly. He still teaches me. He still speaks to me. He still encourages and trains me. Hebrews 11:4 says this, "By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain's. Through this he received approval as righteous, God himself giving approval to his gifts. He died, but through his faith he still speaks." He still speaks. I don't know what you think about that. He still speaks, I promise you. If you want to open up in your Bible, you can. I'm going to continue on with David. David versus Goliath. Even if you've never been to church or whatever, you might have heard of this story before. Think of David versus Goliath. And if you don't know the precursor to it, there was two armies that were encamped against each other, ready for battle. And rather than fight, the one army said, "Hey, how about you choose your best person, and we'll choose our best person, and they'll fight, and whoever wins, and the other one has to crawl away and go do what they do." And of course, the guy who introduced that had a Goliath, a big, giant person. I don't know what you can picture now. Picture The Rock or Hulk Hogan if you're old enough, or whoever, somebody really big, and then you picture, because it's poetic, someone from my family that's not above 5'7" has to fight this giant. Not a good outlook. Nobody wanted to fight him. No one. For days and days, the giant came out and said, "Who's going to fight me?" If you really want to see this story and you want to laugh at it, there's a VeggieTales video called David the Giant Pickle. Kind of a little bit different, but it gets the gist of it. Every day, the giant comes out and says, "Who will fight me?" And everybody's hiding behind the rocks. They're like, "Don't pick me. No, there's no way. Don't make eye contact. Don't do it." Eventually, David, who would later become King David, was taking food to his brothers on the battlefield. Because he wasn't big enough, he was a small shepherd boy. He wasn't big enough to be in the army. He was taking food to his brothers, and he heard what was going on, and he could not believe what he heard. He wanted to fight the giant. He couldn't believe the outrage that he was challenging God's people and God's army. And he said, I'm going to fight. And what would you tell your little brother in that situation? Go back home. No, this isn't for you. No, get out of here. I picture once when I was in college, I had to do a year of marching band, and once we went and watched the Buffalo Bills play the Dallas Cowboys in Buffalo. And we did the halftime show, and right before halftime, we had to go line up and get ready to go on the field. Well, of course, the game's still going on. And so we're behind the Dallas Cowboys bench, like this far from these people. Let me tell you, NFL players are giants. And we're all like this, just trying to go like this, like whatever, they're on the field. And all of a sudden, something happens on the field that did not make the Dallas Cowboys happy. And instantly, everyone on their bench jumps up and they're like, whoa, I can't believe it! And we're like 4 feet behind them. Okay, not my place. That's what it had to feel like. There's no way I'm fighting him. And then the little brother comes up, hey guys, how's it going? Hey, oh, you're going to take that from him? He just said something mean about it. Are you going to stand there and take that? And they're like, you better get out of here now. As a matter of fact, keep your voice down. This is not going to go good. You just zip it, just go, do whatever. In 1 Samuel 17, this is what was said. Saul said to David, you're not able to go against the Philistines to fight with them. You're just a boy. He has been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And whenever a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went after it and struck it down, rescuing the lamb from his mouth. And if it turned against me, I would catch it by the jaw, strike it down, and kill it. Your servant has killed both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, since he has defied the armies of the living God. David said, the Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear will save me from the hand of this Philistine. So Saul said to David, go, and may the Lord be with you. I don't know it doesn't say what the brother said. Maybe they knew he had killed lions and bears. Maybe they're like, oh, you're exaggerating, bro. There's no way you killed lions and bears. I don't know, but I think it was pretty common back then. Your livelihood was the sheep you had. It was your livestock, and if something was going to come and take it, you better take care of business. What I love about that is we hear about that story, and I can relate it. Like I said, I have pictures of myself. I see Dallas Cowboys in front of me, whatever it is. I see people like that. Is that in both stories about David today, we learn where his strength comes from. He started out with this story like, this is why I can go fight this guy. Because I fought lions, and I fought bears, and I won. And we're like, that's where you start to not believe your little brother. We're like, yeah, but I don't know. But then he continues, and he says, my God, who gave me the strength to kill the lion and to kill the bear, will give me strength to kill this giant. He could have stopped it. I killed lots of lions. I killed lots of bears. You should see me with a slingshot. It's great. I'm going to do this. But he didn't. He said, my God, who saved me from these and helped me kill them, is going to help me strike down this person that's defying God right now. He taught me and you where strength came from, what really was going on. Do you ever feel like something's going to work out because you're on the right side and you got a lot of strength behind you? You don't know where. That's what he felt like. He's like, I don't know, but this guy says, I don't like your God, and we're going to fight you, and we're going to wipe the earth out with all of you, and I don't like that. And my God doesn't like that, and we're going to win. His strength came from God, not from his skill, which he probably had. I'm not saying he could just show up and sit and watch his sheep, and he had never held a slingshot or anything before, and then there's a lion, and he's like, oh, I think I'll fight a lion today. No, I think he had skill and experience that was given to him from God, and he had strength from God. So, when I do something in this world, in this life, and I'm proud of my skill, of what I accomplished, David reminds me where my strength comes from. If I'm scared and I don't know what to do, David reminds me where my strength comes from. When I'm wandering, lost, or bored, David reminds me where my strength comes from. This David. Spending the morning with David helps me remember where his strength comes from. I may read about David, and I may remember my whole life. Lots of people remember David and Goliath and the general story, but we kind of just file it back there and forget about it. So I may forget about it, I may remember, but if I had just spent time with David this morning, and then later that day, I need to be reminded of where my strength comes from. I remember sitting with my friend David over, I don't drink coffee, over a cherry pop. And it's fresh in my mind. And when something comes up, I'm like, oh yeah. My strength doesn't come from my skill. My strength doesn't come from this. My strength comes from God. That's my root system that I need to protect. Not this other stuff, not study harder, train harder. That's where my strength comes from. But I get that because I spent time with David that day. You can spend time with Moses. You can spend time with Isaiah. And over the rest of this month, we're going to learn from a different person in the Bible. Because what a better mentor to have is from people who learned it. Now, I know sometimes you're like, wow, these stories are old. That stuff doesn't happen anymore. Just look at it. They still speak. That's the wisdom before consequence. They still speak. People are like, oh, you become a Christian, you're supposed to read your Bible every day. We're like, yeah, I know. I also know that there's grace of God, and He's not going to strike me down if I don't read one day or whatever. That's not how God works. He loves us. He gives us grace. He gives us peace. What I'm saying is that if you regularly spend time with these people in the Bible, you glean their wisdom from them, and it helps you in your everyday life. It's not saying if you don't spend time with them, God's going to strike you down with a lightning bolt and you're done. No. He's saying if you spend time with David this morning, if you spend time with Elijah, then maybe later in the day when you need to hear something, it's going to be fresh in your mind about the friend that you just hung out with that day, and you're going to remember it because they still speak. Good advice is always close by.
Looking for the shade where the trees have died. Trying to find my way to the peace inside. Until I'm home. Oh, 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 oh. Until I'm home. Oh, 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 oh. Walking down this road till I'm home.
Please, take the things that bring hurt, grief. They told me greed won't bring worth. I heard that, never learned that. Foolish of me not to turn back. It's easy cause you see the real me.